You're not going to believe what you're about to see. The View descended into a screaming match the moment someone dared to toe a different line on the panel. And this time, the liberal echo chamber was surprisingly broken by Alyssa Griffin, shutting down the nihilistic fear-mongering about Trump before he's even taken office. There's so much I need to tell you about this, especially in the backdrop of how desperate the show has become, so watch this before we dive in.
In 2016, at this time, the Women's March was being planned. That began getting planned the election night, and it began with a Facebook post of a housewife in Hawaii, and it turned into millions of women marching all over the country the day after the inauguration. I think, look, we're all 8 years older. I think a lot of us are still apoplectic that America voted against a qualified woman again and put in, this racist, misogynist, and they don't care. And so it's like, so it's tiring, it is exhausting, it is disappointing. I think this election cycle was an emotional roller coaster, right? We had Joe Biden, the debate, 2 assassination attempts, Kamala coming in and running hard, leaving it all on the field for 107 days. And then we thought she was going to win, like we did with Hillary in 2016, and she didn't. So I think people are exhausted. I think they are looking at, taking care of themselves before they take care of America, right? I gotta breathe. My mental health has got to be in a good place. My physical health has got to be in a good place. That doesn't mean we're gonna tune out for 4 years, but it means we're gonna take some bubble baths for a little bit.
Yeah.
Wow, so that's the best excuse she's got? Feigning public rejection of Democratic politics with public exhaustion after the election is a sad attempt at hiding from reality. Truth is, there has almost been a mass exodus of the center left from the Democratic Party over the last few years, giving the other side enough of a margin to sweep the polls, and I think we saw glaring evidence of that in the weeks after the election, when all major left-leaning news outlets like MSNBC and CNN lost a staggering 50% of their audience. So yes, maybe the audience is exhausted, but it's exhausted from being played for a fool by the Democrat and left-wing media establishment, and the constant demonization of Donald Trump that's just gotten old by now. And there's hardly a show on legacy media that's been more on the forefront of that than The View. You know what? The View specializes in something else thanks to Sunny Austin on the panel, which is introducing a needless racial angle that serves to divide. Watch what she said, because I think it sounds scarily similar to what people like Joy Reid have been in a dangerous attempt to radicalize the results of the election.
9 out of 10 black women voted for Kamala Harris, and that historically black women are sort of the backbone of the Democratic Party, right? And so 92% of black women voted for Kamala Harris. So you have 92% of black women very disappointed and feeling some of the things that you are feeling. So I think people are taking a moment to take care of themselves. Self-care is really big. I think they're also reevaluating how they want to engage in this democracy. She's a friend of mine, but Latasha Brown is also the co-founder of the national voting rights group Black Voters Matter. And while a lot of people said that Stacey Abrams was sort of the architect of Georgia going blue, it was actually Latasha Brown that was on the ground, and Stacey Abrams has admitted that. And Latasha said this weekend: America is going to have to save herself. Mm-hmm. She said, people can rely on black women to lead change, but the next 4 years will look different. That's not a Herculean task, that's for us. We don't want that title. I have no goals to be a martyr for a nation that cares nothing about me. And I think a lot of black women are feeling that way.
You have got no idea how sad this is to see from a historical bird's eye perspective. In an America that is decidedly left behind relics of racial pasts, it's truly incredible to see in the 21st century that it's the modern left-wing progressives resurrecting racism and identity collectivism in response to an election loss. And while Sunny Austin is speaking about African-American women voting Democrat, what about the nearly 3 in 10 African-American men under the age of 45 that shifted toward Donald Trump? Does Sunny's call also apply to the men, or will she come up with some intersectional nonsense to gaslight the men for not voting for a female president? That's what happens when you open that can of worms. There's no turning back once you start explaining everything in terms of race. Joy Reid in the past weeks have been making waves for echoing a similar racial call for African-American women, and it sounds just as desperate and tone-deaf to the new realities of America.
I'm pretty sure Black women have resigned from the Save America Coalition, Save Democracy Coalition, and definitely the Save the Democratic Party Coalition. I think that's probably not happening. I would just keep those invites maybe among your own friends, because I don't think they're coming. But yeah, I think Black women are now on the Save Black Women, Prioritize Black Men, and prioritize Black communities, Black businesses, and that, and, you know, the Black spaces, but Save America, Save the Democratic Party. Yeah, I don't think that's happening.
That radicalized language alone makes me super uncomfortable. And you know what? Hearing stuff like this from prominent left-wing media figures is bound to weigh on you at some point, which is why Alyssa Griffin decided to be the odd one out on The View to challenge it. Felt so refreshing for once.
God's honest truth, I kind of always thought Trump would win until maybe the final days, just because it felt like Kamala Harris had this real momentum. But the signs were there. And I have a very diverse friend group, family, like people who vote different ways. And I have felt like there was a yearning in this country that people wanted Donald Trump back. And the most common thing I heard this entire election cycle was, I don't like his personality, I don't like the way he talks, but my life was better when he was in office. And I'm in this position where I feel a bit unburdened by what has been. I'm going to wait and see. He's not been sworn in yet. I'm somebody who probably agrees with 75% of his policies. If he focuses on creating jobs, on bringing down the cost of living, securing the border in a responsible way, and being tough on America's adversaries, I'm all for it. What doesn't mean we're not going to call balls and strikes when he does things that are beyond the pale or he uses words that are offensive to people, then be ready to call that out. But I just think I'm kind of shying away from this sort of apocalyptic, it's all, we need to be like losing sleep over it. The American system of government is strong. It's held. There are checks and balances, even if my party's in control of the House, the Senate, and the presidency. And I think we should I root for America, so I root for a smart, serious Donald Trump presidency, and I root for pushback when he doesn't do things that are smart.
I think all those things are great to dream about, and they're great.
A rare voice of sanity on The View?
Oh my God! Okay, it's happening!
Well, Alyssa Griffin usually has no other role on the panel than to rubber stamp from a Republican side whatever ill-informed take the panel says, and to give the illusion of impartiality. But there's no use crying wolf about a man that still has over a month and a half before he takes office. Simply put, Alyssa, finally breaking the echo chamber for once, realized that it popped very violently when it did. Here's a few responses from The View's audience to her breaking out of the mold for once. One comment read, Alyssa is and continues to be part of the problem. She used her whiteness and proximity to power to stand complicit to an agenda and regression in America to make America white again. Another one reads, Alyssa's working so hard to establish herself in the Republican hierarchy. One viewer even wrote, I'm cool with The View if they get rid of Sarah and Alyssa. In other words, get rid of the only two people on the panel that maybe occasionally say something half reasonable. It's truly incredible to see because apparently the rest of the panel on the show was just as offended that Alyssa dared to disagree in favor of Trump, especially Whoopi Goldberg, who didn't even let her finish the thought before jumping in.
This process was handled without me. Yeah. Because the things I was looking for, and I listened to people make fun of it, it's not about race, it's not about misogyny. It is for me. It is for me. Because that's how you see me first. So that's how I have to respond to you. And I don't think this is what you're saying. I want to be really clear. Because you know how they like to always put us, and she was mean to her.
Yes.
I understand all the things you want to see him be. I understand all the things that he promised he would be and he wasn't. And now that he has been given carte blanche, I'm not going to waste a lot of time on what he might do.
But at the
I'm gonna wait because I need to see what he will do so that I know what I'm going to do.
That's in many ways my point. But we can sit here and we could be apocalyptic about what he might do, but I also think there's a moment for self-reflection. I felt as unrepresented by Biden when I would talk about, I care about the border. Why did you wait till 3 years in to do it? I care about the cost of living.
But
why aren't you talking about?
I'm not going to wait and see. I mean, this guy's told us he's a retribution. He's going to be a dictator.
There's nothing to be done until you know what you're fighting. It's pissing in the wind doesn't help. You just get a wet face.
But I mean, but I
Everything like
have
a five-alarm
what I'm
fire
saying is
doesn't help.
I have no false expectations that at 78 he's going to all of a sudden
No
turn
one does.
into
No
a
one does.
natural human being.
Everything like
And
a
I'm not
five-alarm
gonna spend,
fire
I
makes
spent,
people tune out.
I spent weeks telling people that he was apocalyptic. I'm not going to change now because it's still the same
You're
man.
not treating every single thing like
I think that's when we lose credibility.
No, Anna, you actually gain credibility when you admit you were wrong instead of continuing to say the same stuff just to stay consistent. And did you notice how quickly Whoopi Goldberg picked up after Alyssa stopped speaking? Whoopi knew there was an applause coming from the audience for Alyssa, and there's no way she was going to let that happen and make the rest of the panel look bad. Plus, it's kind of sad that Whoopi also has to fall back on her identity rather than engaging with the argument, saying that she's hearing for different things that Alyssa can't. It's basically just a way to shut the conversation entirely down, but you can hardly expect better from a panel that has no idea what to do when someone dares fall out of line and makes more sense while doing it. Let me know in the comments what you thought about this segment, because I think it's moments like these that stress test the shows like The View for how tolerant and open-minded they really are.